And if your heart is calling you to sing or speak and be heard, then you owe it to yourself to love yourself enough to say yes to that. Because magical fucking things happen for you, for the good of your own life, for the quality of your life, when you say yes to yourself in that capacity and you honor what your heart is trying to tell you to do.
Hey, podcaster, are you ready to free your voice and embrace your authentic self? Well, I am so excited to be joined by Sarah today, who is a singer, a vocal coach, and a podcast host who's on a mission to help people express themselves through the power of sound. I am excited to share her story from dancer to a confident vocal artist. And this story reminds us that when we speak up, when we step into ourselves, when we let that inner spark actually come out, regardless of what people are telling us, magic truly happens. So it's never too late to pursue your passions. And trust me, Sarah is going to teach you how to use your voice in ways you never thought were possible so that you can start showing up more confidently on your podcast and make those tsunamis that we're here to make, because you are too magical to be a ripple. So without further ado, let's do this. Welcome to Beyond the Downloads. I'm Jen, your podcast bestie, here to tell you there's so much more about podcasting than just those numbers. So before you throw in the towel, you better listen up. We're diving deep into the heart of what makes podcasting truly special, from storytelling to connection, and yes, even healing. Think of me as your podcast life raft, ready to help you navigate those choppy waters of this podcasting world and the podcast overwhelm. From understanding the therapeutic power of sharing your voice to the practical tips to grow your show without losing your ever-loving mind. If you're ready to ditch the hustle and create content that leaves a legacy, a tsunami impact, no more ripples. Whether you're launching your first show or looking to take your podcast to the next level, I'm here to help you grow, launch, and yes, make some money from your passion. Let's make your podcasting dreams your reality. It's time to go beyond the downloads, where your story becomes a legacy. I am really excited, podcasters, because we have a special guest today that I actually got to hang out with in person that has a really cool story and is going to help us set our voices free. So welcome to the show, Sarah.
Woo! Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm really excited because, again, we got to meet in person, which I'm loving now. I'm like, I got to give people hugs this year, and I'm very excited about this. But when I was listening to your story and about singing and how singing can truly like open your mind, and then we got into the conversation about like performers and, like we all have our own point of view on different fields. And I think that the way that you shared opened my mind. And I think that that's why stories are so important. So I want to know a little bit about how you got into this profession. And yeah, then we'll talk about your podcast. Don't worry.
Sure, absolutely. So I actually grew up a dancer. I did a lot of competitive dancing. Was I fantastic at it? Not really, not my strongest suit, but at that time, that's what we did, as a way for us to get physically active. And we were good enough at it that we loved music, and it was a way for us to perform. And so that mixed with piano lessons was really how I just started. But then there was this little pageant that was going on in my hometown called Miss Butler County, Little Miss Butler County. Okay. And I really had been dreaming and dreaming and dreaming of being on stage, right? Kind of secretly. And I wanted to do this pageant so bad for whatever reason. Maybe I just wanted friends. I don't know. But I really wanted to do it, right? And so they had signups at this dance studio that I was going to. But they were really mean at this dance studio. They were kind of the worst people ever. But you needed a talent, right, to sign up for this pageant. That was part of the pageant. And I went over to ask my teacher if she would teach me a dance solo so that I could participate in said pageant. And I remember her very vividly pointing at the list and going, "This is not for you." Which to say to an 11-year-old child is really like the 90s. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
Rough times in the early 2000s. Okay. And I don't know what kind of audacity I had as a child, but something moved me to be like, okay, fine, then I'll sing. And my mom at the time was like, honey, you can't sing, you're tone deaf. You can't do that. My mother, and meaning well, so that I didn't go embarrass myself, right? And I was like, you know what? I was 11. I don't know why I did this, but my grandmother had gotten me a karaoke machine for Christmas. Had no singing experience at all, but found there was like a karaoke Broadway kids CD that it had like a vocal demonstration and then you could record the audio. Or sorry, not record the audio, you could sing with the accompaniment. And so I literally taught myself the song Castle on a Cloud from Les Mis because I liked it. And I just felt, I was like, I really want to do this. I went to my mom in her house and I said, Mom, I really, really, really want to sing. I prepared this song. I kind of was like auditioning for my mother. Can I please, please sing? I really want to do this pageant. I sang it for her. She started to cry and was like, I'm so sorry. Like, of course you can sing. It's like making me emotional now talking about it, but I know. And that honestly was the very start of my own journey of declaring that if you have it on your heart to learn to sing, you can. And that really projected my entire life, right? And later was the foundation and the roots for why I've created what's now being announced as the Singer's Path, which is the name of my podcast, which is the name of all of the courses that I offer. And it really meets any person that desires to sing, really truly has it on their heart. It's for beginners, literally to pro singers. And each course, each step of this curriculum is designed to meet you exactly where you are, whether you need to learn to pitch like I did back when I was 11 and taught myself to do, to learning to mix belt like Elphaba on Broadway, which I've literally auditioned for. And I have learned to go from step one, I need to learn to sing the right notes, to I'm in final callbacks for a Broadway show. So this singer's path, all of what I do with my business, what I'm going to talk about on my podcast, is all about just showing singers that there is a way. You know, everybody has their own journey. Everybody is going to go through different things as an artist. But I just want people to know that someone's done it and there is somewhat of a guide available to them. So that's what the Singer's Path is all about and why I got into it and kind of the foundation of my whole business, which is called Sarah Bishop Vocal Studio.
Oh, and I'm like, as I'm still emotional about that, but it's like there's so much of that that goes on, right? That we're told, yeah, you're not a good dancer. Like, this is the first thing I said, I'm not good for your program because I'm tone deaf, like majorly tone deaf. I sing every day, but the cats run away.
Well, sometimes the cats are just sensitive to volume, if we're honest. Their ears are going to be twisting all around no matter what. But I will say that was actually the first course that I created for what's now known as the Singer's Path. It's just called, wait for it, Pitch Please. I need to get that trademarked immediately. My trademark lawyer that I got set up with is like, okay, that actually needs to be a priority. We need to do that right now. So TM, it's mine, Pitch Please. But that's the course that teaches you to match pitch and sing consistently on pitch. I gathered as much information as I could about the brain and neuroscience and how the voice works and created this course with the most state-of-the-art information we have available and created this program that sometimes goes against traditional ear training programs. And that's why it was really scary to produce. I'll be honest. I was like, it was kind of coming to me intuitively. And then I went back and backed it up in science. But I was lucky enough to lecture on pitch in the brain and teach about Pitch Please in Scotland at a World Teacher Conference this year. And there was a woman there that specializes this. I think she studied at like Oxford or something. And she was like, no, everything in there is correct. Yeah, no. That's exactly what it is. I was like, oh, talk about validation. I was like, oh my God, thank God. This thing that I've created for people and actually came up with the structure via trial and error of working with people, maybe like you, that had come, that love to sing, but literally just can't. They just don't know how to pitch. They're just like, please help me. And I'll tell you one more fun fact about this. If you're ever like, well, why can my sister sing on pitch and why can't I? Right? It often has to do with your musical influence growing up, actually, and how, your brain's forming when you're young. And so if you played an instrument, especially like a string instrument like the cello, or you're used to tuning and understanding the importance of tuning at a very young age, you're going to be a lot better at pitching most of the time. It also has to do with muscle coordination and almost muscle memory. So yeah, so that's Pitch Please, Jen. If you want to, if you want to check it
Oh,
out, that's
I
what it
think
is.
I think I need to. And the funny thing is like I was in choir.
Mm.
I was a clarinet player. I played the piano. I did them all very poorly because I
I did
was
also. Go ahead.
the
Sorry.
stories. It's the stories, right?
Yeah, it's the stories. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'd be curious to hear you and see. Pitch Please also benefits people who actually might have really good pitch. They're just very critical. I think that's the other thing is like often when people are really critical of their voices and they can really tell they're off pitch, they actually have really good pitch perception. They just have a difficult time recreating it and with confidence. And it's the story of, oh, I'm a bad singer. So therefore, you are a bad singer, right? Versus like, no, I can actually really detect and hear when things are off pitch. And so I just need to train my body to be able to do it more accurately. There's a lot of professional musicians, especially like professional guitar players, professional clarinet players who hate singing back because they have like perfect pitch and they literally cannot match it because it just drives them crazy. So I'd be curious, Jen, to hear you and see if it's maybe just a confidence issue. Just curious. Just saying.
It depends on the day. It depends on the
Depends on
day.
the day. Depends on the day.
But
Let's not take our cats as a as a meter of
well, I don't have any cats. It's the neighbor's cats that run away. And I'm
oh,
like, my dog appreciates it. So
there you go. Do they howl?
my
They're like,
dog sings with me.
ooh. Oh, there
She
you go.
does.
There you go.
She will sing with
Oh.
me. But the reason why I think that this is important is that it's voice, right? And so many people like podcasters are afraid of their voice. Like I hear this all the time. No one's gonna want to listen to my voice. No one's gonna want to do this. And I kind of like relate it to singing, although singing is way different than just talking. But there's this release of sound from your mouth and
Mm.
it comes out in a certain tone, certain way. And I think that it's so powerful both for the internal and the external. So that's why I'm like really excited for you as a podcast, like podcasters out there to listen to this because, maybe seeing could help you become stronger sharing your message because you learn to open up
Right.
and talk. And
Yeah,
I know that you had a show before, and
I
I'd like to
did.
talk a little bit about that because you're now starting a second show. So can you tell us a little bit about your first toe dip into podcasting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, just to briefly comment on what you said, I think studying the voice, no matter what, is incredibly vulnerable experience. And listening back to yourself is very vulnerable because it's quite literally an expression of you. And if we're not comfortable and owning that expression of us, like with zero fucks to give, we're going to hear that back and we're going to be harshly critical of ourselves. So studying the voice in any capacity is a very vulnerable and emotional thing. And it's important to have a safe space that you have a teacher that's able to hold that for you, or you're in an environment taking a course where you feel like you really belong there. Speaking of that, I actually started my first podcast, which is called Jack of all trades, master of nothing, which is just a win. The dance teacher that was the worst. She used to actually tell me I was that. Let's talk about some child abuse here. That there's that. But she would tell me that I was a jack of all trades, master of nothing. And she's not smart enough to realize that the phrase is actually jack of all trades, master of none. But she would call me that. So I was like, well, I'm going to take my power back as an adult. And I'm going to call my podcast this. And I actually started the podcast during COVID, mostly because I just had this intuitive hit of like, now you start a podcast. It was so crazy. I was like doing a lot of nature bathing and healing, mostly because I had just spent the last, 6 years in my 20s being vulnerable by using my voice as a professional singer, showing up in New York City, but going to Broadway auditions, but like hitting wall after wall after wall after wall. And I felt very rejected in the vulnerability of my voice and my artistry and was really lost in the ownership of that. And so for some whatever reason, I had the intuitive hit of being like, okay, let's do a podcast then. We don't have anything else to do. We're at our parents' house in Pittsburgh. Like what Okay. And like everybody and their mom was doing a podcast at that point, but I was like, whatever, I know I need to do this. And really, Jack of all trades turned into almost like, now looking back on it, like almost like a performance art piece of capturing exactly the starting point of someone that was beginning to heal in their artist's journey. And I literally use it as an example, or just an excuse rather, of bringing on top industry professionals. I'm talking about casting directors on Broadway, music directors on Broadway, pop singers that have since gotten popular. I had Dylan Mulvaney on my podcast, who is a trans rights advocate. She's very famous now, but we knew each other in college. And really, all it was just inviting people that I admired on to help me understand how I wanted to feel about things. Like, truly, that's what it did. And so, if you ever listen back to that, and I think I'll download the episodes and to my computer and probably re-upload them on my new podcast here. But there are conversations with the hard stuff of like talking to a casting director who, more or less from the actor's perspective, almost feels like a gatekeeper of opportunities, even though they're not. All they want to do is help someone. But like having conversations of being like, what is this dynamic between actors and casting directors? Like, let's talk about it. What is the dynamic of facing, and sorry, trigger warning here, facing complications with having an eating disorder and body imagery issues in an industry that is so commercialized and capitalistic, and who's making the decisions at the top, and you're trying to heal from that, but yet you're also trying to show up as you. How do you feel? It was the biggest thing, and this is what my new podcast is going to be about, but it all kind of boiled down to, I was trying to figure out, how do I feel safe enough to be who I am and free my instrument and come here to do what I came here to do? How do I feel safe enough in these environments that are just not that safe? How do I say fuck it all and show up to do what I came here to do? And so anyway, all of these people were here, and this performing arts piece was the first start of my healing path in that regard. And the other thing I'll say about Jack of all trades and podcasting in general, and how it kind of just completely transformed my life, besides starting that healing, was it honestly was the roots to me starting the business that I have today. And it's wild. It's so wild. One of my friends, again, another college acquaintance who's now very famous, but at the time, TikTok was very new, right? And she had something like 80,000 followers or something. She was, in my mind, was blowing up, right? And she was teaching some really great stuff. She was teaching the voice. And I, at that point, was not a voice teacher. I had not been trained. I was a singer, but I, was like, wow, everything she shares is like really great. Like, I'm going to bring her on. So we have this podcast interview, and I share that I am passionate about teaching and I am passionate about this. But at this point, I don't feel like I know how to help other voices. Like, I'm just exploring my own, all of that. And she's like, hey, if you will go and get trained, I have so many students, dude. Like, I cannot handle this. I'm overwhelmed with how many people want to work with me. I need help. Will you come on and be a teacher at my studio? And I was like, okay. That studio is now EKM Studios, which has like, I mean, her following is like 1.8 million followers or something. It's it's an amazing vocal studio in the world. Right. And then I worked with her for like 3 years. I mean, nonstop teaching. The influx of students was insane. I got hundreds and hundreds of hours of practice becoming a good teacher. And I trained through the Institute of Vocal Advancement and honed my skills. All of that happened because I had this podcast, and I had the audacity to invite my friend to just talk about herself. All of that happened. And now eventually I had so many students where I was like, I need to scale. Like, I need to change my business. I have a desire to help more people. I got to break away, and I'm going to form my own business. Right. So that's when Sarah Bishop Vocal Studios was created. So yeah, thanks podcasting. Thanks Jack of all trades. And now we have a new podcast, Singer's Path podcast, that's coming out here.
I'm so excited. I'm so here. I love these stories because it doesn't get talked about enough, right?
Yeah.
Of like, I started sharing my voice and this is what happened. I started sharing my story and this is what happened. Because this is one of the things that I think is kind of sad, like, because I listen to a lot of storytelling podcasts. It's like, well, I don't want to just be stuck in that. Like, okay, yeah, we were told we sucked. Like, it sucked.
Yeah.
And I feel like you took that and you looked at it and you're like, I'm going to step on that that whatever. I always think of it like little blocks that are being like bricks that are thrown at us. I'm like, great. It's one brick that makes me a little taller. I'm kind of short, so I'll take it. I'll take the
Yeah.
couple extra
I'll take the
inches.
step. Let's
Hey,
go.
thanks. But I think it's really cool that you again, this is the same thing as my story. Is like I'm on this planet because of a podcast. Like you are creating something that is helping others find their voice. And that's something that we like, but in a way that isn't angry. And I
Hmm.
appreciate that a lot because I feel like with music, even though, like I go everywhere from like hardcore death metal to like
Oh yeah.
opera. Like I am the
Oh
jack of
hell
all
yeah,
trades.
Jen. Hell yeah,
um,
Jen. I mean, same, same. That's amazing.
I love music, but it's like it's it's something that frees my voice. Like I said, I am tone deaf. I can harmonize really well, which makes me know that if I really put my mind to it, I could probably do
So
it. So you're
you're not
probably
tone
right.
deaf. If you can harmonize, you're not tone deaf.
I don't like
Harmonizing
to
is
be the,
harder.
is it? Well, because that's way easier for me.
No, harmonizing, you need to hear the fullness of the chord. You're hearing not only the pitch you need to hear, but you're hearing other pitches simultaneously. That's what makes a good harmonizer, someone that
Oh,
hears the whole chord in the context of the piece. That's
oh,
very
oh.
difficult. We learned that in Pitch Please. Honestly, Jen, I
It's
want
that
you to do it
forward.
now.
I'm the back. I'm the backup singer. I'm the harmonizer in the back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think that it's so cool with your story that it's like we have these fires inside of us and we don't go after them for some reason or another, and I feel like I mean, I hate to say it, like 2020 like woke a lot of people up because we got to go inside and take a pause from our crazy
Yeah,
busy lives.
yeah.
And I'm like, like not to get into any of the politics already, but that pause helped so many people. And I think that what it brought to you and what you're bringing out into the world, there's so much healing in expressing through sound, whether that's speaking sound, that's whatever. I was just talking to somebody who's going to start adding music to poetry. And I'm like, that's
Courage.
really cool. Like,
Yeah.
great. But I love pitch please. I mean, like, that's, yeah. I'm like, I almost want to like bleep every time we say it. So that like,
I know because it almost sounds like
like,
it almost sounds like bitch, but it's p. It's a
no, I don't care
p.
about no, I just, until you get your trademark, I was like,
Oh
we're more
yeah,
protect. I'm like, beep.
yeah. That's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get it filed here shortly.
So,
So yeah, we're here. Well, this is proof that I had it first. So
right.
here,
Get it out there sooner than later.
here, getting
But I
it.
think that there's probably other stories that you have about using your voice, if I'm
Mhm.
not mistaken, about how
Yep.
it's really, I mean, and especially in an industry like we were talking about, you were like body image, like critiqued on such a, I mean, we get critiqued in our everyday life. I can only imagine as a performer. I'm like, how did you, and like, what is something that you recommend to somebody who's really struggling with taking that first step forward? Because I can only imagine. Again, I'm not in the industry, so maybe like in my mind, it's more wild than it is. But like,
Mhm.
I can imagine being like, here I am in all of me,
Right. Yeah.
and
I
having
mean,
being judged for that.
yeah. So I mean, honestly, I think it just depends on the person and it's different for everyone. And I mean, I think it's an ongoing process. I mean, again, another reason why the singer's path is a thing is because I feel like there isn't a whole lot of discussions happening about it and exploring people's paths and journeys that they're on with it and being okay. It's okay if it's hard, right? And I mean, I will say personally for me, struggling with body image as a dancer, I think it all comes down to the stories we tell ourselves again. It's deciding in fullness of you, being like, fuck that, fuck you, and fuck that, right? Any person that is going to have an opinion about my body can kindly fuck off, right? And not with really anger, but I think one of the things that healed me, especially about body image, and we're not even talking about expression, we're not talking about voice, we're not even talking about acting. Acting is a whole other level. You're talking about vulnerability. Like It's crazy. But my biggest thing has been, yeah, body image. And it all came back to thinking about my body. And this might sound a little trippy, but it's important for me as like my house, right? Like I own this house. It is my house. It is my house for my soul. It is the thing that keeps me healthy and protected. It is my vessel for being here. And it's nobody's fucking business. It's it's mine. You can't I don't give a shit, Broadway producer number 10, if you have an opinion and then you don't fucking hire me because X, Y, and Z reason, because I'm not skinny enough or I don't meet your male gaze because you're at the top and you're the one ultimately calling the shots. And I actually don't care. And I'm gonna rewrite the narrative of making myself so magnetic and so authentic that it doesn't fucking matter because I'm going to keep showing up over and over and over again in whatever way that I can. And eventually you may need me. Hey, let's talk about big dick energy here. Maybe by standing in that space and owning yourself so much, is it possible to expand yourself from that level and then bring them to you? What does that look like? I don't know. We'll see. That's the process that I'm in constantly of choosing differently, not choosing to feel like you're reporting to someone else and changing yourself for them, but rather making your mission being like, I'm actually just going to radically accept where I am and who I am and give zero fucks and show up that way. What happens? Be curious. So yeah, that's where I am. And I'll be honest, it's vulnerable and it's messy. And, I come back and forth from it. And some days I'm feeling great. And some days, I'll slip back. And I think the practice is just being like, no, this is your life. You get to decide. Let's own that. And let's use that voice, right? It's layers, right? I mean, we could talk about acting and singing too, a whole different setup. But I think nervous system is also an important thing too. How can we calm our body? We can logically think about it too, but when you're in audition and you have a habit of looping on, being self-conscious about them watching you or listening to you, not you have to do that work subconsciously, but then you also have to calm your body. You have to learn how to hold hold yourself there. So yeah, that was a really long answer, but I hope I answered.
No, and it's great because it brings up so many different things. And that's a lot of the reason why I started podcasting is
Mm.
because it was just voice. It was like, I'm not putting the video up. This is just voice. And it felt safe. And I don't know, because again, I am not the expert, but is there something that, like you said, calming the body, is there something about what our voices do to our nervous systems to calm them
Mm.
when we do speak up? And I'm asking, like, I have no idea
Yes.
if you have the
You're like,
answer, but
please.
I want to
Yeah,
know.
no. This is so again, the whole part of the singer's path has been very technically focused so far about like, okay, let's do the technical thing of pitching, let's do the technical thing of developing technique, which is pillars, and let's do the technical thing of learning to mix belt high and high mix, which is like singing like Jessie J or singing like you're in an opera. Okay. That's what it's been so far. But the next step, and this is like on the deal, no one knows. Okay, so this is some juicy tips for Jen here. But the next step is going to be exactly what you're talking about. How do we calm the body with the voice and looking at somatic healing with the voice, looking at changing your energy with the voice. And I mean, this is in early stages of research. I'm working with a friend who specializes in energy healing and somatic work, Soma. So I'm actually maybe going to a retreat in Costa Rica in February, and we're going to be starting to play with this idea of healing through the voice. I do know that the vibration can be helpful for the vagus nerve, and I do know energy wise, if we're talking about like spirituality and that kind of thing, it does end up clearing the space when you're using vibration. The vibration itself can like change. I mean, I might be talking about I'm out of my ass a little bit because again, I need to research this more, but it can be changing the auric field and changing your energy. So the more, if you take the scary step to make the weird noises, if you're in a voice lesson, or just speak out or speak loudly, right? Just that step is almost exposure therapy, in my opinion. And the more you continue to just do it and make yourself do it, it will get easier and better. And that, again, that will reflect in. I can do this. I can speak up. I can speak my truth. You're proving to yourself, I am safe to be who I am. I'm safe to speak my truth. Safe to speak the truth and call out the bullshit. And I'm safe in myself. So does that answer your question? I hope it did.
It does. But I also got to know, like, what are these weird noises? Because I'm sure that,
Yeah.
like, unconsciously, I am holding. I like the more I think of it, every time you say weird noises, I'm like, do I hold back all day, like, not making the noises that I want to?
Oh,
Like,
probably. Probably. I mean, again, I don't know. I would have to hear, but so okay, so there's a couple things you can do when we're talking about somatic work and energy healing and all of that. Again, I'm not an expert in that yet. I'm working with someone to develop that who is. From what I understand, almost in soma, right? For what I know about it, it's about feeling the cues and the energy traps in your body. And I think there's a part of it of which you can give sound to that sensation. And by acknowledging and releasing the sound, it's not like you're trying to change it, but you're being with it and you're expressing it. So, I mean, weird noises, if you're doing somatic work, could be like those like ugly noises that maybe we were shamed of making before, whining, crying, yelling, could be what these sensations in the body want to express through sound. In a singing perspective, when I'm really talking about weird noises, if we talk about pillars, right, which is a foundation of in the singer's path of creating vocal technique, when you're doing vocal technique and you're strengthening your voice, we can use weird noises, funny sounds to get basically the vocal folds to be better configured with the air, meaning using different tools can help us more efficiently use our muscle and air balance. So, for example, the bratty one is everyone's it's so funny. But if you for a second, if you go, for example, maybe Jen's singing voice in the bottom of your voice, like maybe your speaking is clear, and then all of a sudden, when I ask you to sing, Jen puts on like a singer accent. Okay, and she goes, ah, ah, and it's all like airy and like light all of a sudden because we're like hiding and we don't want us to people to hear us or like, oh my God, like we gotta control it, we gotta keep it here, otherwise people will hear us. Oh my God, God forbid. Okay. That might be subconsciously what's going on when you're creating that sound. Or maybe you think it's pretty and you're trying to put something on to sound good, right? What we do, especially in pillars, like this would be an example in pillars of someone that needs to work on the chest voice because chest voice is the speaking voice. We're really just speaking on pitch. So doing a funny noise to address that and get it closer to talking would be this bratty spoken thing. So if you, we'll do it together. Jen, say for me, say nasty. Just say it.
nasty.
Yeah, and you
See,
went and
there's
make it
your
a little,
accent.
yeah, there you go, nasty. And then you make it a little bratty. Na 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 na, nay 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 nay. Do that for me.
Na 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 nay, 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 nay. I can't even
Yeah,
not laugh. That makes me
right.
happy.
Because
I feel
it's
happier.
fun. It's fun. And so we would take Jen's voice in that lower part if Jen was sounding like, and I would give you a scale on that weird noise, na, 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 na. And all of a sudden, by doing that exercise, it causes you to balance your voice. It takes you from a place of feeling off balance and light and weak energetically or physically. And the tool of making the funny fucking noise all of a sudden puts you in the middle of your expression. So that's an example of what a funny noise can do, physically and emotionally.
And that just proves a point. So if you're sitting there, podcaster, and you're like, my voice is, maybe it's down here. Because when I started, I was, little airy fairy. Hi, I am Jen. All right, we got to turn up the mic because I'm not speaking up. That I feel like learning to sing, whether you can't, like, you're going to be professional or not, actually can help you show up as a speaker, as a
Yeah.
podcaster, because maybe me singing every day to whatever it is, whether it's Metallica or death
Metallica.
metal. Like Metallica is my all-time favorite band, FYI.
As it should
But
be. As it should
I'm
be.
like, I'm like, I think maybe that has helped me show up. Like
Mhm.
my car singing, when you can turn it up really loud and you can't hear yourself and you just let it out. Like
Mhm.
I bet there's a ton of weird noises that are coming out that is not singing.
Well, it's trapped, it's blockage. You're clearing the blockage and the fear. You are proving to yourself over and over and over again by exposing yourself to those vibrations that, like, it's okay, I didn't die. I'm all right. It's okay. Right. And then, yeah, I mean, I think it can also, I'm going to bring up a point here that, maybe podcasters aren't thinking about, but it depends on the volume of their podcast. But if they're speaking this way for hours and hours and hours, they might hurt themselves. I think there's something really important to say about aligning the voice to work efficiently. I mean, again, from a pedagogical perspective, as a vocal health professional here, lining your voice up and freeing it can also be important for longevity. Voiceover actors need to balance their voice, and podcasters need to balance their voice just as much as singers need to balance their voice because it's their livelihood. And if you're not, again, healthily and efficiently using your muscle and air correctly, that's how you're going to get tired, and that's how you can get injured. So even though the airy light sound might not seem like it's aggressive on the instrument when you're doing it, it's actually what it's doing is causing strain on the voice because you're not expressing clearly. It's not the easiest way for the body to make sound. It's not how you're meant to make sound. Right? So that's another point that pillars will help you with that even if your podcast being clear. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, as you're saying that, I'm like, I have an anonymous podcast because nobody ever gets to know that it's me, that I do the sultry voice. And I am so exhausted after the
Yeah.
30-minute show being in that alter ego. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Well, it's okay. And again, if we're talking about expression, it's okay to make
Mhm.
sultry sounds on purpose for expression. That is okay, right? And you can hear that in pop music, pop stars, singers, Ariana Grande, Billie Eilish, but they know how to turn it off and they know how to rebalance. You don't want to end up using that voice all the time because you're going to run into trouble. So again, what Pillars does is it teaches you to balance the voice back to your vocal authentic alignment. And so we can choose to make that sound for expression, but that we can get back to our authentic, strong sound. And that's what's important, right? So, Jen, if you're tired, you might want to afterwards do some conditioning for yourself, a little bit of a vocal workout to get back to what's Jen's lined up healthy sound. Okay. And then we're set up and we can rest and we'll be okay. Does that make sense?
Yes. So we all know that
Yeah.
I'm joining your program.
And
Because
Jen is
I like that side. I'm like, I really like being that, but it's so, I mean, I can, but I don't want to talk afterwards. And I get so
right.
hoarse for like hours
Yeah.
afterwards.
So,
But I
and you're
really
doing,
enjoy that podcast.
yeah,
So
do it. Listen, do it. But then if your body's like, rest, I'm tired, then rest. Drink a lot of water, right? And again, I think for Jen, your best things that would help you would be pitch please so you get confident. And then in the Pillar series, I would want you to get the full thing. So you're making all kinds of weird noises, honestly, girl. But chest voice would be the first thing that you'd probably want to look at. And it would rebalance you for sure, for sure.
so podcasters, now you know the secrets because, it's not what our voice sounds like. It's not, all of those things. It's aligning with ourselves because the tone of your voice can be very soothing to other people, especially when
Mhm.
you're sharing story. You're trained, but like the way that you express and share stories is so much different than a lot of other people. And I know it's because you're speaking from your heart, which a lot of people are terrified of. And I really appreciate that you came to us with like this much honesty and openness. But it's also, I think that there's that side that I just realized as you were saying that. It's like, I really like sultry Jen. Like spicy Jen's pretty fun,
Spicy
but
Jen,
she's
we love
exhausting.
a spicy Jen, a smutty little spicy Jen.
But she's exhausting. And I'm like, but there has to be a way, like you said, it's probably in your program where I can learn to let spicy Jen be a little more part of me, but maybe it's on a different, I don't know the right word, different.
And we prepare to choose spicy Jen, and then we can rebalance after spicy Jen so that regular Jen, everyday Jen, doesn't lose her voice.
So again, where can we find all this amazing? I know that you've mentioned it, but I want to, here's that part.
Yeah.
Drop where we can find you so that we can step
Yeah.
deeper into our authentic voices.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, you guys can always follow me on at Sing with Bish on TikTok if it's still around, and Instagram, it's the same handle. But I have we're in the middle of kind of rebranding my vocal studio page and allowing the Singer's Path to become under Sarah Bishop Vocal Studios. But as of right now, my website is www.sarahbishopvocalstudio.com. There's actually no S at the end of it. It's studio.com. And there you'll find linked to all of the courses that's in the Singer's Path program. So pitch, please, pillars, and soon coming in winter 2025, advanced mix. So if you are an advanced singer listening to this and you're like, listen, I just really want to like belt my face off and sound amazing. That's what that course is for professionals and intermediates. So, and there'll be more added to the Singer's Path, and there'll be bundles that'll be coming out. Actually, I'm not sure if this will come before Black Friday or not, but if you follow me on socials, and you go to my website, you join my email list, Singer's Path, or what is it? Oh my God, I gotta write it down because it's new. Singer's Secret Digest, right, is my email list. If you just like follow and check out my website, join the email list, you'll have access to an amazing bundle and payment plan to take advantage of this full experience that is the Singer's Path. So that's what I'd recommend. Go to sarahbishopvocalstudio.com or follow me, join the email list, get on board, and then you'll just be on the train and you'll know about all the stuff.
Listen to your new podcast.
Listen to my new, oh God, thank you. Oh my God. You're like, and there's a lot going on in my business. So finally, the Singer's Path program is going to be partnered with a podcast that is free to listen to, Singer's Path Podcast. I'm going to be dripping out new episodes. There's one episode on there right now as we're recording this. That's kind of just an introduction to tell you what it's all about. But that is for sure all my podcasters where we're going to be talking about all the same stuff we did, freeing the voice, talking to industry professionals, and working on mindset shifts, that we're showing up not as a starving artist anymore. We're not doing that shit anymore. We're going to be thriving artists, and we're going to own what the fuck we have to say, period. So yeah, Singer's Path Podcast. Woohoo! There's a lot of stuff I just plugged. So you know all about it now.
And don't worry, it's all linked up for all of us that like easy peasy in the show notes for you. But I got to leave you with my favorite question. If someone were to take away one juicy nugget from this interview, what do you want them to take with them for either right now, for this week, or a lifetime?
Oof. My favorite thing, and one of the foundations of my business, is that you deserve to express your voice. Whether that's a podcast, whether that's a singer. If you have the desire to sing on your heart, it's an indication that you should be singing. And it doesn't matter the capacity. You don't have to be Jennifer Hudson to have the right to sing. You can sing in any capacity. And if your heart is calling you to sing or speak and be heard, then you owe it to yourself to love yourself enough to say yes to that. Because magical fucking things happen for you, for the good of your own life, for the quality of your life, when you say yes to yourself in that capacity and you honor what your heart is trying to tell you to do. So that's what I would say. And I really, truly fucking mean that. Yeah, that's why I do what I do, because I just want everybody to know that, truly.